I'm here to talk about electric power steering. My name is Krishna Kumar, 19E045. Teammates are Parasuram Aravind. Electric power steering, the system which reduces driver effort for steering to turn the wheel, making it easier for the driver to turn the vehicle. Types of electric power steering: integral power steering, linkage power steering, hydraulic power steering, electric power steering or motor driven power steering. Outline of this component. Outline of this component: steering and angle and torque sensor, reduction gear, motor, vehicle speed sensor. These are the components are used in the system of electric power steering. These components are shown in the system level. Steering angle sensor transmit the following to ECU: to turn vehicle's angle. Types of the steering angle sensor: inductive steering angle sensor, digital steering angle sensor. Steering angle inductive sensor: the conductor plate is attached onto the rotating rotor. Rotator rotates proportionality to the steering wheel rotation. The area of the conductor changes, steering wheel rotates. This cases a proportional change in induction of the coil. Change in induction of coil correspond to steering wheel rotation angle. Next slide will be continued by Aravind.
Greetings, I am Aravind. My register number is 19E009. Uh, First of all, the steering angle sensor has two types. One is inductive steering angle sensor, another one is digital steering angle sensor. Previously, my friend explained about the inductive sensor. Now I continue with digital sensor. This digital sensor, it consists of light transmitter and a disc with apertures of different size. It attached to a rotating steering shaft or wheel. Each aperture size on the disc can correspond to an angle within 360 degrees. This is also called as optic sensor. Is also located on the other sides of the disc. This sensor array measures the interruption in the light of varying degrees corresponding to the aperture size on the rotating disc. Uh, the, this diagram represents about the output of the digital sensor. The sensor output is a digital square wave signal with the frequency depending on the speed of the turning wheel. Next is about the steering torque sensor. The sensor sites on the steering pinion. A pole wheel is fitted on the input shaft which is connected to the steering pinion by means of the torsion bar. When the driver applies torque to the steering wheel, the torsion bar is rotated and in turn the magnet relative to the sensor also rotates. The sensor consists of magneto and resistive elements whose resistance changes as the field direction changes. These sensors measuring range covers plus or minus 10 nanometer. A mechanical angle limiter prevents the torsion bar from being overloaded when higher steering torques are applied. Next is motor. Basically, most electric power steering systems use a three-phase electric motor powered by a pulse width modulated DC voltage. The motor is brushless and has an operating voltage range up to 9 to 16 volts. Three-phase motors allow for faster and more precise application of torque at low RPM. The motor starts rotating as soon as it receives a supply which is controlled by electric control unit. The electric control unit provides supply to motor depending on the signals from angle and torque sensors. Next one is vehicle speed sensor. Now basically the vehicle speed sensor measures transmission and transmission output or wheel speed. The electric control module uses this information to modify engine functions such as ignition timing, air and fuel ratio, and transmission shift points, and to initiate diagnostic rotation. Next, the types of speed sensors. First one is inductive sensor, another one is optical sensor. The inductive sensor, first one, the most common inductive sensors consist of a rod magnet on top of magnetic pin. This is surrounded by a fixed coil. This sensor, some fixed distance from a ferromagnetic rotor is there. It has ferromagnetic rotor with teeth. As a rotor turns and the teeth comes into the proximity of the rod, the magnetic flux in the coil changes. This change in the flux, it gives the voltage pulse across the coil. The vehicle engine control module counts these voltage pulse and computes the vehicle speed. Another one is optical sensor. These optical sensor also generate pulses at a frequency corresponding to the rotor rotation, but instead of measuring magnetic flux, the optical sensor measure either reflected light or light allowed to pass through slides. When using an optical sensor, the rotor either has light and dark marks for the optical sensor to detect the reflected light using photosensors, or a series of slides that allows light from an infrared sources to pass through and be detected by a photo transistor on the other side. Next, we'll continue by our teammate Parasuram.
Greetings, I'm Parasuram. My register number is 19E066. Let's see what the reduction gear is. The reduction gear transmits the rotation of input from the EPS motor, decreasing the rotation speed and thus increasing the torque simultaneously. So when the driver applies the steering for a slight turn, it provides smooth steering corrections during straight driving as well as improved comfort when the steering wheels return from large steering efforts such as turns in intersections. So it also performs alongside the motor to minimize the steering effort. So in this schematic diagram it's shown that every component discussed before is arranged in a schematic manner. So if you see, there is a part called number which is marked as number 2, which is rack pinion transmission, steer angle actuator, wheel angle sensor. So these much units are placed in the rack pinion. So this is rack assisted electric power steering. Each and every sensor provides data. For example, the speed sensor, steering angle sensor, torque sensor. Every individual sensor will contribute data to the ECU. And when the steering is applied, the data from the steering sensor and the speed sensor will be received by the ECU. And after receiving, the ECU calculates the amount of steering that to be supposed to be applied so that it can assist the driver for smooth steering. It will be provided for the driver so we can assist the steering control. Let's see the other kinds of assists. For example, there are various other variants with respect to position of motor: column assist, pinion assist, direct drive, rack assist, like that. In column assist, the assist unit connects to the steering column itself. In pinion assist, the assist unit is connected to pinion shaft of the steering system, an arrangement that is particularly found in smaller cars. Majority of the big cars or nowadays cars will always contain the rack pinion assist only. The direct drive, it features a combined unit of steering gear and assist unit. Rack assist, the assist unit which is connected to the steering rack is usually found in mid to heavy sized vehicles. So that's it. The ECU keeps track of the outputs of speed sensor, steering angle sensor, steering torque sensor always. Whenever the driver is turning the steering wheel, the torque sensor and angle sensor get triggered and send the respective signs to the ECU. The ECU is already staying with the data of speed of the vehicle. So now the ECU supplies the makes in thus the motor to rotate and thus provide certain assistance for the driver in the process of turning. There are also various other benefits of EPS, which is electric power steering. So that is fuel economy is improvised as the electric motor draws the energy only when needed. Eliminates the hassle of hydraulic fuel maintenance. Enables driver assist feature in which driver does not require to turn the wheels with steering input. The EPS can also provide add-on features like lane keep assist, automated parking and lane changes, or the ability to guide the car around obstacles. The automatic pilot mode steers the car with the help of an onboard computer system. More tolerant of out-of-spec alignment settings as it uses software to recognize and compensate the steering. The electric power steering can be adjusted automatically to a crosswind or ground road surface. Thank you.